Falchelin ornamenten natuha, smishen yalavan hardri osen kaun. This may be a little backwards, but we're going to start with the Urraicecht Beag, the Urraicecht, the Book of Druidism, from the website. I'll put a link to the page in the comments so that you have a chance to look at it yourself while we go through. So, the source of the material is the Urraicecht Beag, which is a 7th to 9th century text. This one is based on the translation of Ewan MacNeill, which is published in Eriu, Volume 5 in 1913. It does come with adaptations. It has been adapted for the use of Ardnamata na Tuatha in the Dominion of Canada by myself. The adaptations include substitutions of Nemeton for ecclesiastical terms, such as Ecclesia and Ecclesia, which were introduced by Christian scribes. The substitution of Druidic grades for clerical grades. A further discussion of this is in the Bardic training, the 12 years of Bardic training as detailed by Eugene O'Curry in his Manners and Customs of the Ancient Irish, which is adapted for our uses here. The degendering of all personal pronouns as best as possible, and legal persons in accordance with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which denounces any discrimination based on gender. Where the original text has been followed closely, this is noted. The original MacNeill translation remains the scholarly reference and the basis of this translation. This is a living, working text, subject to revision by the Cathaoirleach in Ardnamatan. So this is as it is so far. If in Cathaoirleach it's changed, then it gets changed. But here it is for the moment. So you get an idea of what the little treatise, the Urraicecht Beag, is. So it's done in sections. I will enumerate the sections and have discussions where pertinent as we go through. So number one, before I start, it is a coin law, coin meaning to question and answer. So very much like the master-pupil system that is very popular in Eastern mysticism and whatnot in Eastern practice, similar thing in the West. The master either inquisits the pupil, gives them a catechism, here's the question, you must have the right answer, or it is the pupil asking the master for instruction, but it's a question and answer, coin and frecker. Coin means question in Gaelic, frecker means answer. So, the first is, wherein is found the jurisprudence of the language of the Féini found? The answer, frecker, is in proof, in right, and in nature. Now, as to the language of the Féini, there are some theories about this. I enjoy a couple of them. One is that it's the language of the Féini is a survival of the Old Goidelic, which is the Proto-Gaelic language that came, according to the Leabhar Gabla, from the Scythians down through Egypt, across the Mediterranean to Spain, and then with the sons of Miled up to Ireland to become the historic kings of Ireland. That's another story for another day. But there are other theories about this as to where the language of the Féini may have come from, or even where the origin of Goidelic comes from. One of my personal favorites, which is being studied right now, but I'm not sure what kind of proofs they have to this. At the Battle of Kurukshetra, if you happen to know Hindu lore, there was a division between the sons of Arjuna and the sons of Dhritarashtra, and I believe it is the sons of Dhritarashtra who went west and occupied what is now Europe, and would have brought that version of the Pali Sanskrit language with them, and then which would itself have become the basis of a Scythian language known as Goidelic. Phineas Farce, his children, and the fall of Nimrod's tower. The rest is detailed in the Leabhar Gabla, the Book of Invasions of Ireland. So that's my interpretation of the language of the Féini. So, number two, proof is founded on rules and maxims and true testimony. Right is founded on verbal contracts and acknowledgement. The law of nature is found on remissions and joint arrangements. One of the things that distinguishes the Irish legal system is that it maintained perpetually, even up through the Christian era, the rights of nature, and in particular the rights of trees. The most notable of this was the rights of the 9 sacred trees of Ireland, that these had personhood under the old law, and any injury to them was owed, the injury price or the death price owed to a person, as it would have been to a person. You could have apparently have lost a hand or an arm if you stole a king's apple from his orchard, because the rights of nature extended to the lord of that land. Anyhow, so number three, proof and right are founded on the neme, normally meaning the sacred or free, is a generic term for every person having the franchise of the Féini. So Kelly, which means a bond or bond servant, and then Nemi or Nemed, which is the free people. There's a saying in the old British system that no king can be Nemed, because a king is not a free man. he is bound to the people who serve him and who he serves, because power goes both ways in the Irish dynamic, not simply uphill, and it doesn't simply trickle downhill. It's a shared ascension of power. Because if the king does not take clients, as you'll find out later in this, he effectively becomes a hostilier, right? If he owns the land and treats people but doesn't have any clients, he is still free, but he cannot be a king because he has no clients, so he's necessarily a hostilier. Anyhow, we'll get to that in a minute. So, number 4, whatever decision is not founded on any of these is altogether void. Pretty basic. 5, whatever decision or regulation of the nematon exists is founded on proof and seannos, meaning the old wisdom. The decision of a fili, however, is founded on the rules of law, because they are sacred legal poets. The decision of a ruler, however, is founded on them all, on rules of law, on maxims and true testimonies, because so much is expected of a king in this ancient legal system. Number 6, there are 2 kinds of neme that exist on earth, the free neme, the sor neme, and the subject neme, the dor neme. The free neme are the druids, the rulers, the olavs, the fili, and the feni. The subject neme, however, are the folk of every art and craft beside. The reason why the folk of every art and craft are called subject neme is because they serve the free neme. But everyone is also free who purchases his franchise by his art. Hence there is a saying, the free in the seat of the unfree, and the unfree in the seat of the free. Everyone may become free by his wealth. Everyone may become unfree by his lips. So, read the spellcraft section. Be careful of what you say. Words have power. Anyhow. So 8. The 9 grades of the nematon are, and you can see this in the section where we discuss the 12 grades of study of bardism, which was developed by, or remembered by, Eugene O'Curry in his Manners and Customs of the Ancient Irish. So number 8. The 9 grades of the nemeni are Anhrú, Focloch, Macfeudimich, Dos, Cano, Clee, Anrat, Olav, and Druis. An interesting side note on this, when a student begins their study, before they become Focloch, before they enter into their bardic grades, they're known as Anhrú, the first sprouts, the first growth. When, after traveling through all of these grades, and they make it up to Druis, and they become a high Druis, and they're a druid with druids under them running the Nemetoni, when a druid comes to replace them as the high druid, they become Anhrú, and they start the whole process over again, which means it is a constant cycle, always going. So when you reach the height, you are now at the new place of beginning, and you begin a new cycle as an Anhrú again. It's a lovely, lovely circular kind of reasoning. I really like that about them. So 9. The 9 grades of governance. Government in regards to subject-clientship and their contemporary equivalents. A muincher is the folk. Ergeso is the bailey or sheriff. The Erechta is the mayor. Ertusa would be our premiers if we relate them to Canada. This is meant for a Canadian group. Art are the members of parliament. The Erforgil are the ministers of each party. The Ri, is in our case the governor. Well, it's the king. But in Canada, our king isn't resident here. Our king has a representative who is the governor general. So the Ri here is the governor general. The Ordri, the king above kings, is our king, who would be right now in 2026 Charles III. God save the king. And above this is, of course, Jahan or Jah. So gods and then God, the ultimate. 10. 9 chattels of Jira for an Ergeso, the protection of 3 days, 4 men's food provision for him, 4 cakes for each man, and their condiment and their seasoning. If it be true kinden, meaning the seasoning, vegetable, garlic, onion, leek, or a joint, kaimchneim, literally a bent bone, or perhaps a ham or a sheep's joint, 16 flakes for each, 4 stalks of true kindem to each cake, or honey, or fish, or curds, or a salted joint with every 20 cakes, in like measure even up to a chri. Now, what this is detailing is the house maintenance, or the food maintenance, the food custom that was due to every person who showed up at a house, that the host must provide this. Depending on their rank, they must provide certain amounts. Because no rank in Ireland comes of an individual's individual effort. It comes because of the retinue of people that support them. This was a problem during the administration era of King Henry VIII, when the English cohort would be about 9 people representing the entirety of England as 9 people. According to the Brehov law, the king had to, at all times, have a retinue of 350 people. If the king had a retinue of 349, any of the other subject kings who had 350 could take his place as the ardri. It was a competitive system of kingship, not a hereditary system. You were not guaranteed the kingship because of who you were born. You were guaranteed the kingship because of who supported you. So the king would have to show up everywhere that he went with his 350 or risk losing his kingship. Same with his queens, same, with their 250. Same with their princesses, their 150. If a princess of a family only had 149, but a princess from another family had 150, she would be immediately put into the royal family. So the royal house in Ireland was not always one family. It could have been a conglomeration of families, whoever had the support that was required for the position. Okay, so when they show up at your door, it is never one person showing up at your door. It's that one person with their entire retinue. So when a king shows up, it's him and his 350 people, right? So this is a legal breakdown of the food provision and the protection, normally, which was protection that they would be given to show that they are capable in the art that they claim to. But it is protection for a certain amount of time and food provision as detailed by the law. So that was number 10. Number 11 is 10 chattels for an erechta and protection for 5 days and 30 cakes. Number 12 is 15 chattels for an ertusa and protection for 10 days and 40 cakes. Number 13 is 20 chattels for an art and protection for 15 days and 60 cakes. And number 14 is 30 chattels for an forgula and 100 laymen with him and a month's protection for him and 80 cakes, as I just mentioned. 15, Ri of one tuaha, the king of one folk, with 700 laymen with him, half of 7 kumals his jira, and a month's protection for him. Number 16, an ardri with 3 ri with him, and protection for a fortnight and 160 cakes for him. This describes the ardriship properly. An ardri is not a high king. He is not a high king if he is not a king over kings. If he's just a king by himself over his own territory, he's a king of one tuaha. If he has 3 kings of one tuaha under his belt, as it were, he becomes an ardri, a king over king, a high king. Okay, so 17. In like measure for the grades of the nematon, as to food provision and protection in jira, but dracht is added for these along with jira. Now, this details the food maintenance that any monk can, or of the various orders, can expect when going to a nematon. Okay, so 18. In like measure, for heirs of a nematon, as are the grades of a nematoni to which they belong, though they themselves be not in holy orders, if their means be otherwise good. So, if you were the son, the nephew, the daughter of a druid, of a bard, of an olav, you would be welcome to join in with their food maintenance and their food provision and their protection that they would be receiving. So, 19. The Anhru has the jury of a Galav, a foreigner. His protection is subject to the Anamkarach, or the sole friend, or the Nimet, or the free person who will speak for him. A new person in Ireland was afforded no right to public maintenance, no right to public speech, no right to self-defense, no right to anything. They were pretty much left to the whims of fate. So a Nimet, or a free person who took them under their wing, would do so at kind of great cost, because if this person that they took under their wing becomes a client, they lose their Nimet status and they become Kele, just like a king. They become a small ruler. So they had to walk a very fine line of keeping this person with them without actually keeping them as a client, because it would have changed their entire status from Nimet to Kele. So the other thing is the Anamkara. Irish confession is much different from Roman confession. Irish confession requires 3 people. The peccator, as you will, the person who committed the act, the Anamkara, the sole friend, who's going to be the intermediary between all of this, and then there's the bishop. So let's say Ioina has stolen an apple. He approaches his Anamkara, says, I've stolen an apple and I'd like to make amends. The Anamkara goes to the bishop, says, my friend here, who will remain anonymous, has admitted to a crime and wants to make confession and make amends. The bishop says, come bring him for confession. So, on one side of the confessional sits the person who's seeking redemption. The bishop is in the middle, and the Anamkara sits on the other side to act as a advocate for the peccator. as it were. Now, once this is done, the bishop determines what the penalty is going to be, or what the balancing payment will be. Say it's a 10-cent apple, the bishop says pay the merchant 10 cents and go forth. If the person doesn't feel comfortable approaching the merchant saying, I stole your apple, here's your 10 cents for it, they can give the 10 cents to the anamkara will go pay it for you. So when they say the Anru has the jira of a Galav, the newcomer has the jira of a outlander, his protection is subject to his anamkara, his soul friend, or to the nime who will speak for him. That's kind of what they're getting at. So now, number 20, 9 grades of fili. An Olav is equal in jira to a king of 1 tuaha, and has a month's protection, and 3 times 9 men are his number. What this implies, then, by necessity, is that the druid, who is an Olav over Olavs, becomes or gains the jira of a high king. So the druid is the high king of the Nematoni, of God's castle, as it were. So 20, which is 9 grades of Philia, and Olav is equal to is equal in jira to a king of 1 tuaha, and has a month's protection, and 3 times 9 men are his number. 21. 1 minor chattel is the jira of a fochloch, 1 day his protection, and food provision for 2 men for him. So a traveler that's coming from abroad has his 2 companions, he's only allowed 1 day's protection. So 22, 3 chattels for a mitch, and food protection of 3 men, and 3 days protection. 23 is 5 chattels for a dos, and food provision of 5 men for him, and 5 days protection. 24 is 7 chattels for a kano, and food provision of 6 men, and a week's protection. 25 is 10 chattels for a kli, and food provision for 8 men, and 10 days protection. 26 is 20 chattels for an anrat, and food provision for 12 men, and 15 days protection. There's more on the ranks of this if you go to see the either the page of Bardic Studies, or I'll be doing a video based on the 12-year study as detailed by Eugene Curry and his Manners and Customs of the Ancient Irish. All of these grades appear there. 27, what is wanting from each person's means is wanting from their dignity. What is added to their good means is added to their dignity. If you show up and they're expecting 15 people with you and you only show up with 10, they don't have to give you the cakes for 15 people. If you said you were coming with 10 people, but you show up with 15, they're going to have to produce the cakes for 15 people. So fairness is balanced into this. So 28. Half the dignity, katu, of a person or man to his spouse or to his wife or to her husband, or to their dutiful child, gormak, a dutiful son, or to their rechter, their administrator, or to their sechneb, second abbot, or olav. 29. We discussed this earlier. 29. A bruku, hospitalier, is equal in grade to a ruling noble if she or he has beside the double of each grade's amount of land and husbandry. It is by reason of the ruler's kindred and best, toika, house custom, that he or she excels. 30. She or he is no brikriu, hospitalier, who is not a ketach, 100-full, meaning they can produce 100 of anything at any given point. She or he repels no condition of person. She or he refuses no company. She or he reckons against none how so often she or he may come. This is the briuku who is equal in jira to the rig of a tuaha, which is what I was saying. So the briuku welcomes people in but does not take clients, which means they will not be a king because a king is defined by the clients that they have. This is just a hospitalier who has people come in, treats them with whatever, and then they go on their way without clientship requirements. So, 31. They say the briuhu leitech, which I believe in Scots Gaelic we'd say briuhu leorach, glossed from tokaichi, chosen or choice, a superior hospitalier. For us, it's fine, the fine hospitalier. This man or woman has double wealth. She or he has an ever-stocked cauldron, and she or he has 3 roads coming to the house. So, there are 3 roads coming up to their hostel, to their house. The cauldron of warming, which was a sign of kingship and kinship in the day, it is unlawful to ask anything, including how someone is, when they show up first at your door, before you offer them the chance to wash their hands in the dust from the journey of their hands, the chance for them to have a drink, and the chance for them to have food. Once you've provided those 3 things, then you are allowed to ask them, how are you, da-da-da-da-da. Now, the briku, the hospitalier, is only expected up until sunset to have their cauldron of warming burning. Once the fire in the cauldron of warming is out, they stop accepting people at their hostel. A bruchuleitech, or a bruchuleoch, has a cauldron of warming that burns 24/7, and it is always full, which means they have to have somebody or a rotation of somebody's to maintain that cauldron, so that even if at the middle of the night a host comes along, they can see that the cauldron is still burning and that they know that they will receive welcome at that hostel. That makes them a fine hostelier. 32. Fortlafelba, classes of worth. Now, Ignol and Flesach and Garich and Fermidbot, it is she or he whose foot and hand are not restrained, not Komahar. She is responsible for her own. She or he is responsible for their own liability of foot and hand. Kin Kais Akas Laivna. Oh, yeah. And Mrigfer, the second Boera and first Okera. So Mrigfer, a person of the people, second Boera, a lord that owns 2 cattle, and the first Okera, a landowning lord. So 33. The jira of an inyol is a fleece of wool or a ball of yarn, or kerkenrun, a hen without secret, meaning a hen that has never dropped an egg. 34. A lamb of the value of a sack of corn or grain, for a flesach or a stripling, and a sheep for a garich, a yearling heifer for a midbod, and 3 cakes for his food provision. So 35. 3 chattels for a second boera, akas ontra kolail, to the corresponding hour of the following day. So he's only allowed protection from the hour he arrives to the corresponding hour of the next day. His or her protection. And 5 cakes with milk for him or her, or butter. So he can have milk or they can have butter, but they're not guaranteed both. They're only guaranteed the one. So 36. 5 chattels for the first boera and 2 days protection, and 8 cakes for them with their condiment and salt for their seasoning. 37. Subjectnemi, doornemi. Now, this is wrights, blacksmiths, braziers, whitesmiths, and physicians, and jurists, meaning Roman priests or bards, and the folk of every art and craft besides. The franchise of jurists and wrights increases till it reaches the food provision for 12 men and 15 chattels for jira. So there's an upper limit to this as well. Something we could all learn about in the modern age, about upper limits for wealth and wealth distribution. Anyhow, other story. That's another story. 39. Blacksmiths and braziers and whitesmiths and physicians, though it be a chief master of them, are entitled only to food provision for 4 men, 8 chattels are their jira, and 3 days protection. Again, that upper limit to make sure that we don't go exceeding upon the people and eating them out of house and home just because we stop in to visit. So, 40 begins with coin, or question. What is the jira? What gives jira to a person? The frekker. Merit, pliutoilklas, integrity, jirkas, and purity, gleinjacht. These are the 3 things which bestow jira upon a person. Jira means judgment or the payment that comes with the judgment. Okay. So there are 3 divisions. The measure of a person's honor, einech or enech, enechlan, full honor price and half honor price, enechriche, half honor price and 1/7 honor price, enechgris, 1/3 honor price and 1/2 honor price. The 7th part of honor price is also called arer. These measures have reference to various degrees of injury. So if you were injured, this is the honor price that will have to be paid out. This is the portion of your honor price that will have to be paid for basic injury. It increases depending on the severity of the injury and which class injured you, whether it was a class above you or a class below you, and how that registers in terms of jira. We generally leave this for the brehem to figure out. That is their job. So, 42, the good arts are both free and subject because they serve and are served. Their distraints are free and their judgments are free over their rightful customs and over their apprentices. Fair. 43, the jurist who is competent to give decision for the folk of arts and crafts in regard of justice in the estimation of measurements of the works and the remuneration of every product, and who is competent to reconcile customs and award, has 7 chattels for jira and 3 days protection and food provision for 4 men. As I said, the brehev, this would be a jurist, a brehev, who is making this competent decision, and one who is capable of making this particular competent decision is granted that much protection and food provision. The jurist of the language, or the brehev of the language of the Feni and the lore of the village, 10 chattels are his jira, 5 days protection, and 30 cakes for him. The jurist, or brehev, of the three languages, the Fennicus, the ancient laws of the Philodect, the lore of the Filich, and the legend or Latin learning, which is Urraicecht, the lore of the Druids, is equal to an Ertusa, a landowning lord. 46. The master of the letter, Ogam, is equal in franchise to the king of one Tuatha. The second master of the Ogam letter is equal in Jira to an Art. The junior master is equal in franchise to an Gesso. All this comprises food provision and protection in Jira. Students of Latin from that down are entitled to smaller franchises, for there is no Latin learning without franchise. In this day and age, we could also say the same about Gaelic learning. The Verla, the common tongue, is in Canada French and English. Gaelic is a franchised language at this point, both Urraicecht and Alpenocht. So, 48. The man who practices together 2 or 3 of the aforementioned crafts is entitled to an honor price to the value of 8 milk cows and food provision for 8 men. Now, 8 milk cows. The base measure of all value in the Brehiv system is the value of 1 milk cow, which is often broken down to 26 handmaidens. Each of those handmaidens is worth so many chickens. Each of those chickens is worth so many bags of grain or corn or whatnot. So it breaks down in that style. So this person who obviously has some sort of honor price is worth the value of 8 of these milk cows, so 8 times the base measure. So 49. The man who practices together 4 of the crafts aforesaid, 15 chattels for his jira, and food provision for 12 men, and 10 days protection for him. The chariot wright and house carpenter, the cloth figurer, the relief caner, the shield maker, the franchise of a second bow edda for them. If he practices together 2 crafts of them, the franchise of the first bow edda for him. 51. Turners and fetter makers, leather workers and wool combers and fishermen, the franchise of fetter midbod to them. 52. The harp, that is the one craft of music that is entitled to franchise, so long as it accompanies nobility, the franchise of a first bow edda for him. 53. Every art now that we have said that is entitled to franchise, the franchise that he has in the Tuatha does not fail for want of his art if he practices it elsewhere, be it in a Tuatha or in a Nemeton. Hence the saying, the Nemi do not diminish each other. So, if he performs the toin, let's say a bard comes or an Olav comes and performs the toin. If he performs it in a house and then performs it in a Nemeton, his honor and the honor value of that performance does not diminish just because of the location that it is performed in. If, however, they come singing a song, like a minstrel, and they go into a house and they are given the cause of a minstrel, they will be given 1 set of payment. If they go into a Nemeton, because they are a minstrel and not a franchised art, they will receive either no payment or a different payment entirely from where they are performing this. But the Nimi do not diminish each other. So because somebody is in a franchise level of art, other franchise level members of art do not take away from their status. So, 54. Whose art is one, his jira is one. Whose art is many, his jira is many. It increases franchise. It's pretty self-explanatory. 55. The folk of voice, the Aescuil, who are the Chronic, the singers of Cronan. I will make a separate video on what Cronan is. It's a very ancient style of music, which I think I've discovered the source of, and it'll be a topic of another video. So the Chronic, singers of Cronan, an instrumental, Erfitid, the players of pipe and flute, music besides, and other, i.e. other than harpers, jockeys and charioteers, steermen and followers in feast and retinue, and mummers and jugglers and buffoons and clowns, and their lesser crafts besides. It is in regard of the honor of those who keep them that jira is paid for them. Otherwise, they have no franchise apart. So meaning, the court jester, as we might know them in a more popular setting, their jira is reliant on the lord who they perform for. So they have no franchise or jira or honor price of their own. Their honor price or their defense in a court is based on who employs them. So if they're employed by a king, they run by that king's enterprise because that king is there to defend them. This explains a lot to do with why mummers do what mummers do. Mummers are included in these. When they come to the house to do their mumming, those of you who know what mumming is, it's worth looking up if you don't. They will come to the house, make an introduction. The reason for this introduction is because they come with no jira. They have no honor price. They have no enichlan. When you invite them in, which is why there's always the debate at the door as to whether or not you will or will not let them in, when they come in, there is nothing that the law can judge them on because they have no jira to judge against. So they are put in a very base position, but it actually gives them a lot of power in that space. So when you're dealing with the mummers when they come to your house at New Year's or at midwinter or whatnot, this is why they're given all that power, is because there is no jira that can. They have no jira to run on, and they, once they enter the house, are under the jira of whoever owns that house. So anyhow, but they have no franchise apart otherwise. The original text probably ended here. The articles that are about to follow have the appearance of random accretion. So this is a text break that was given by Eoin McNeill, stating that the original text ended here and that these were probably additions made at a later date. So 56, who is not of good means is not of good merit. Pretty self-explanatory. 57, the master of the Fili and the master of wisdom and the master hospitalier, each of them is equal in franchise to the king of one tuaha. They have 30 chattels of honor price and a month's protection, and 80 cakes for each of them. 58. A second master of the letter of Ogam, and an Anru Filet, and a chief master of handicraft are equal in franchise to an heir art. And number 60 is the master test blacksmith or witsmith or brazier, who is raised to franchise by the tuaha. Each of them is equal in franchise to an heir gesso. And this is our conclusion of Urraicecht Beag. I will try to put a link in the in the description so that you can read along with it. Thank you very much. Fáilte le mo chara chin.